Getting back to the basics of teaching children, not teaching them critical race theory.
And what is critical race theory?
Well, I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because I don't understand it that much.
Hey, every conservative person in America, here's a fun challenge for you. You can prove to me why I shouldn't generalize and say that that video is representative of pretty much all of you. And all you have to do that is make a video demonstrating that you know what critical race theory is, how it is implemented in schools, specifically at the K through 12 level, and why you think that that is among the most terrifying things that kids can learn today. I'm so excited for this opportunity for us to learn together. So yesterday, I issued a challenge to every conservative in America to see if they could say what critical race theory is, how it is implemented in schools, specifically at the K through 12 level, and why that is a bad thing. I asked specifically for them to respond in the form of a video. The overwhelming majority of responses I got, however, came in the form of hastily and poorly written comments. So right off the bat, I do have to dock some points for not operating within the parameters of the assignment, but let's take a look at some of these comments and see how they did. Starting off strong, this one is definitely F. This one right here is also F. Yeah, this one is F minus, just biggest F I can possibly give. This one's an F. This is an F. This is an F. This is an F. F, 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 F. Yep, F. Yeah, that's another F. And they just more or less went on like that. This guy made a video, which I watched. He was very sincere and earnest, and he gave a decent, if a little clunky and vague definition of CRT, but the video kind of fell apart when he tried to answer questions 2 and 3. All in all, it was the best grade I gave out all day long. I gave it a D, so props to that guy. This man also made a video response. He starts off strong, giving another pretty good, but also pretty vague definition of critical race theory. But the video falls apart when he displays his understanding of intersectionality and the brown eye, blue eye social experiment. This is a very famous experiment where a teacher separated her students into brown eyes and blue eyes in the classroom and gave preferential treatment to one over the other. His takeaway is that segregating people into groups based on arbitrary features is a bad thing for society. And he's not wrong about that. The problem is, he thinks that it's critical race theory that is separating people into these groups, failing to understand that the point of the brown eye, blue eye experiment was to illustrate to these elementary school students a basic reality of our society. And that reality is that our society foundationally has been set up in a segregated manner due to white supremacy stemming from European imperialism. Critical race theory is not the reason for that segregation. It is simply the study of it. It is an academic analysis of it. This guy's video probably comes the closest to the position of the intellectual conservative. And basically that position boils down to the solution to racial discrimination in America is just to pretend it doesn't exist. Talking about it is bad and only creates more division. Ignoring it is the path forward. And that's just not correct. So I had to give his video a F. Keep the videos coming, please. Videos, not comments. I want to hear you articulate your position in the form of a video. I look forward to seeing if somebody on the right can get a passing grade. It's the video you've all been waiting on pins and needles for. The answers! So a few days ago, I issued a challenge to every conservative in America where I asked them to do 3 things. Define what critical race theory is, how it is being implemented in schools, specifically at the K through 12 level, and why that's a really bad and scary thing we should all be afraid of. I made a follow-up video where I showed a lot of the responses I got. Spoiler alert, they were all really bad. But since making that follow-up video, I got a ton more responses, and those were actually also really bad. So enough messing around, I'm just gonna give you the answers. Question 1, what is critical race theory? Well, in very short and immensely oversimplified terms, critical race theory is a college-level academic analysis of the way that racism and white supremacy have influenced the creation of certain systems and institutions and laws in America. It's typically taught to law students because they're learning about how certain laws came to be. Critical race theory posits, among other things, there is no such thing as biological race. There is, however, such thing as social and legal race, because many societal systems and laws have been set up to recognize and have biases for and against certain races. It's a really complex system of thought and analysis that you don't actually need to delve all that deep into unless you're planning on becoming a lawyer or something. Which leads us nicely into question 2, how is it being implemented in schools, specifically at the K through 12 level? And, it's not, is the answer. Your kids are not being taught a college-level law course on critical analysis of systems and institutions. When your kid learns about the civil rights era, or slavery, or Jim Crow, or the Civil War, or the colonizers' treatment of indigenous people, that's not critical race theory. That's just things that happened in American history. So question 3, why is it a bad thing? Well, if you understood question 2, then you would understand that it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad or good thing. It's just a thing that is not happening. It's a non-thing. Which brings us to bonus question 4. If critical race theory is all the things that I just said it is, then why is almost every conservative in America convinced that it's something completely different? And we are out of time, which means I'm going to have to answer that question on part 2, which you should go watch now. Go watch part 2. I promise it's good. You should watch part 2. It's a nice way to wrap up this whole critical race theory shit sandwich. Go watch part 2. We'll see you over there at part 2. Okay, part 2. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, go watch part 1, then come back and watch this one. I don't want to do the intro again. It takes too much time, and we got a lot to get through. The question being looked at is, why are so many conservatives convinced that critical race theory is something that it isn't? More specifically, why are so many conservatives convinced that critical race theory is Marxist indoctrination that teaches children as young as 6 years old that being white makes you inherently evil, and being black makes you inherently a victim, and that we should all be reverse racist to white people to fix the problems of society? How did they all get that same idea? So over the last few years, there's been a widespread propaganda campaign involving multiple right-wing think tanks, politicians, and media outlets. The goal of the propaganda campaign was to activate conservative voters by giving them a vaguely defined catch-all leftist idea to unite in fear over. It was great for the media outlets because it got viewers, and it was great for the politicians because it got voter support. But really the whole thing started with this guy named Christopher Rufo. He was the one who popularized the idea in the conservative media apparatus to use critical race theory as a political weapon, to use it as a catch-all term to get rid of anything that they don't like from the left. Anything that feels too woke or socially conscious or just generally critical of white people in any way, get rid of it. That's this scary Marxist thing called critical race theory, and it's coming for your kids. And that's not my analysis of what Christopher Rufo did. That's what Christopher Rufo publicly said he was going to do and then did. Like, here's a tweet where he just says, yeah, he just said, here's my plan, and then he went and executed that plan. Kind of like when Donald Trump just said, if I ever lose an election, I'm just going to say that the other guy cheated. And then he did that. Or like when Donald Trump and a bunch of other Republican politicians said, we should all have a rally on January 6th at the Capitol to take our country back. And then they did that and tried with a straight face to blame it on fucking Antifa. The whole point of the original video I made was to show two things: that most conservative voters have no idea what critical race theory is and really shouldn't be this pressed over it, and to take a look at the irony of a group of people who love to criticize the left for being people who don't do their own research and only listen to mainstream media, all the while literally getting all of their information from like 3 sources, and that's it. If you had actually looked into it for yourself, you might have thought, oh, I don't think that they're teaching this college-level law course to my kids. And then you might have thought, why would they tell me that they are when they aren't? And then there is a slight chance that you might think, could it be that I am part of an ideology that banks on my ignorance and the high likelihood that I will not question them when they tell me a new thing to be afraid of? Bye.